What's up, guys? Brady here, coming at you with a discography ranking for Failure in preparation for their upcoming album, Location Lost, dropping this Friday, April 24th. This is the second of three discography rankings that I'll be uploading in preparation for this massive release date. And out of these three bands, Failure is one of two of them that started in the 90s and came out with some of the most influential yet underrated albums of their time. Then broke up, arguably at peak popularity, and then came back in like the mid-2010s and released some music that is just as good, if not better, than their 90s material. So yeah, I guess to preface, if you were a Failure fan back in the 90s, you might disagree with multiple of my spots here, but that's what the comment section is for. And yeah, getting right to it, I'm going to give the bottom spot on here, my number 6 spot, to Comfort, the band's debut. Definitely a logical debut record. Like, I feel like this record sounded exactly what I thought it was going to sound like my first time listening to it. It's the early mid-90s. I mean, this is definitely the band's most purely grunge-influenced album more than anything. And this is probably another one of those records where at the time it felt like maybe something a little bit different, but given retrospect now, this record is, I think, more grunge than anything even, especially in both the vocals and vocal performance and the production. But something positive that comes with that is just an overall like gloomy atmosphere that the record maintains throughout. Like, I think the dissonant opener on here, Submission, and also the mysterious sounding track Something are both good instances of that. But on the flip side, and I think the reason that, actually I guess there's two reasons why I would place this album at the bottom. For one, the tracks do have a tendency to blend together. This album is a lot less diverse and dynamic than future Failure releases. And it's their debut. You know, they haven't really quite figured out themselves and their sound as a band yet. And the result is a record given context that just doesn't really switch things up a whole lot from what was going on around that same time. It's still a solid record that doesn't make it bad, but it does give it the bottom spot. Top 3 tracks I'll give to Submission, Something, and Muffled Snaps. My probably very predictable choice for the second to last pick under the number 5 spot, I'm going to give to Magnified, the band's sophomore album. Even though this record does share a lot of those same criticisms that I gave Comfort, the debut, I do think it does set itself up a little bit more, just set itself up for success a little bit more just by sounding slightly different overall from just the grunge sound that was everywhere around the time. It is a lot more spacey, a lot more vibey, and a lot more atmospheric throughout. The opener, Let It Drip, I think is pretty catchy and has almost like a trippy vibe throughout, which in the future, no pun intended, will be some of my favorite elements of Failure's music. You also have a track like Undone, which has like this element of tension to it, and the melodies themselves are almost a little bit creepy and lurking. Just a very unsettling song throughout its entire runtime, which I like. Also, Frogs is a track I really enjoy. It's got a really groovy bass line like right away before all that dissonance comes in. And Wet Gravity is a song that sees the band really pull off a longer runtime on here. It has some of the best up and down dynamics on the entire record, which makes it maybe my favorite song on here. And yeah, aside from those tracks, I mean, there's some other cool moments, but in general, I do think the bulk of this record tends to blend together a little bit still, just because most of the tracks do have the same mood throughout and also very similar tempos. So yeah, definitely a slight step up from the debut, but not as memorable and impactful as future Failure releases would be, at least on me. Top 3 tracks, Wet Gravity, Frogs, and Undone. Number 4, the number 4 spot is where I might get into some trouble. But again, this is what the comment section's for. Fantastic Planet. So yes, I am arguing that all 3 of the post-reunion Failure albums were better than the original 90s albums. Could you attribute that to just me being a younger fan and not getting into them until Hard as a Monster came out? Maybe. But I've spent a lot of time listening to these records, and I'm standing by it. And yeah, that being said, this is definitely the best of the 3 90s albums. It sounds more unique. It establishes the band's sound as being actual space rock instead of just being grunge. The songs individually have a lot more distinct moods and individuality to them, and as a result, the album blends together a lot less. On the first half of the record, you have a really energetic song like Sergeant Politeness. Pillowhead, too, is another song that kicks up the energy on this record for sure. And then Smoking Umbrella is also in the first half of the record, is one that has a lot of cool rhythmic ideas, especially when that syncopation kicks in after that first part. There's some highlights on the first half for sure, but for me, it's the second half of the record that really excels. Starting at Solaris, I think. That song, it brings in the grunge influence like a little bit, but it has a lot of really catchy grooves in it. Pitiful, too, super catchy song. It has a really infectious 3/4 pace to it that I like. Leo really keeps that momentum going, and it has almost like an upbeat nature to it, which I find really infectious too. Also, The Nurse Who Loved Me is a great track. That one's a lot more like soft and melodic, but in a way that has more of like that entrancing hypnotic vibe to it. Obviously, another Space Song and Stuck on You are two of Failure's most well-known and most played songs. They kind of speak for themselves. And the closer, Daylight, I think has a lot of more like transformations throughout that make the song a lot more engaging. So yeah, I definitely see what the hype is about with this record. It's a great record, and by far my favorite of the three 90s ones. Top three tracks, Stuck on You, Smoking Umbrellas, and The Nurse Who Loved Me. Number three has got to be The Heart is a Monster from 2015. Actually, the album that got me into the band. That being said, though, it just very narrowly edges out Fantastic Planet for the number three spot. What gives it the edge, I think, is just that it has a bit more personality to me. It has more of that space rock atmosphere to it. And again, the moods presented in the individual tracks are a lot more unique. You got Snow Angel, which is really trippy. Atom City Queen has almost like this the sinister vibe to it that I think is really cool. There's the somber but tense track, Mulholland Drive. Petting the Carpet has a lot of warm melodies to it, and it's a really endearing type of song. The Focus later in the record is very like flamboyant, and that one kind of comes out of left field, but in a way that surprises you, and I do think it still belongs on the record. And I should also talk about the Segu tracks. On Fantastic Planet, I do think they maybe work slightly better than they do on this record, because on this one, I wish that the album would have just ended on I Can See Houses. Maybe just because that's like my favorite song on here. I love like the really barren post-metal feel that it has, and just the slow build. It's one of those songs that you put it on and it kind of just like takes you to another place. And yeah, you have songs like Hot Traveler, The Single, and Fairlight Era that feel like they probably could have fit on some of the band's 90s albums in a good way. I think maybe my least favorite song on here is Counterfeit Sky. I do like the mid-tempo pace that it maintains throughout, but mood-wise, I feel like the song is just a little bit stuck in the middle and I can't really identify with it. But aside from that, I like every song on here. I think the album has a really good flow to it, with the exception of maybe some of the Segu tracks that don't really need to be there. Top three tracks will give to I Can See Houses, Snow Angel, and Atom City Queen. Now, you might be asking yourself, is this discography ranking just going to be every album, how it was released sequentially? It has been so far, but no, it's not. My number two pick is going to go to Wild Type Droid, the band's most recent album from late 2021. Funny enough, I think this is probably Failure's most like stylistically straightforward album, but it works magnificently on here. I think this is probably Failure's like hookiest, but also most accessible album. Yet it still sounds like the band. They don't sound like they are trying to be some other band or they're trying to do something else entirely. They've just taken their sound and made it more accessible, which is something that's hard to do, but they did it so well on here. Mercury Mouth, great instance of that. Also Bad Translation, which is a little bit slower, but still has a very catchy chorus. Submarines, which is the lead single, super catchy track. And then the moodier tracks on here might be my favorites. They do such a good job at establishing that clear mood, whether it's dystopia and barren emptiness, like a track like Headstand. That really trippy bridge section is probably my favorite part on the entire record. Bring Back the Sound is another huge highlight for me on this record. Again, just that acoustic guitar, it has such like an empty, barren feel to it. And then when the song really kicks up and you get the distorted guitars kicking in, it's a very satisfying payoff. Also, Undecided is like a really dreary type song that has almost like a droning chorus and a very infectious, like slow pace to it. That's another highlight for me on here. And then there's two tracks on here that almost function as full-on ballads, I would say. For one, A Lifetime of Joy just has some beautiful melodies, even though it's really short. It's like just over a minute long. I wish it was a little longer. And then the closer, Half Moon, which sees bassist Greg Edwards take lead vocals, is just absolutely beautiful. Two very moving tracks on here. And overall, there's not a single song I don't like on here. It's such a tight record. They don't waste any time with any of the interlude tracks either, which I can't help but love. And it was a very close race to the number one spot for me. I think maybe the reason I gave it number two is just because it is slightly less nuanced than not just past Failure records, but the record I'll put at number one. But I absolutely love this one. It was one of my very favorite records of 2021 when it dropped. Top three tracks I'll give to Headstand, Half Moon, and Bring Back the Sound. And that means my pick for the number one Failure album is In the future, your body will be the furthest thing from your mind. I remember when they released it back in 2018, they did the thing where they put out like a bunch of EPs and then finally combined them to make the album. I actually didn't listen to any of the EPs. I waited until the full album dropped to fully listen to it, and wow, was that a great decision. I just feel like this album goes together so well. It flows so masterfully. Out of the entire catalog, I think this record has the most winding, spacey, and just like entrancing atmosphere out of them all. Yet you have tracks like Paralytic Flow with that really infectious stomping snare drum in the chorus. You have No One Left and also Solar Eyes with that really catchy bass line that still kick up the energy of the album. A couple of the tracks on here just really, really trippy. Like What Makes It Easy, maybe my favorite on here. Also the closer, The Pineal Electorate, which again sees bassist Greg Edwards take lead vocals. I almost get like a Beatles vibe of that song, just in the way the vocals are delivered and some of the cadences and also the keyboard line that's repeated throughout. And then you have tracks like Apocalypse Blooms and Distorted Fields, which bring in a really dark, gloomy atmosphere, which again makes for some of the best moments on the record. And maybe the reason I gave it number one is because the instrumentals on here, the segues, actually work really well in the full album context. For one, they allowed the Pineal Electorate to be the actual closer on here, which I think was a great choice. This is just such a great full album experience, and any Failure fans that may have not given the newer material a good chance, I would highly recommend this album. To me, it is their best. Top three tracks: What Makes It Easy, Distorted Fields, and Apocalypse Blooms. And yeah, that about does it for this album ranking for Failure. I would love to hear how you guys would rank Failure's album, so please comment your rankings below. And also stay tuned, hit the subscribe button so you can see my review of Location Lost when it drops. And given the score I will give it, you can see where it fits in to my ranking as well. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.